So if I start with what I see as, I would say the benefits of traditional research, which in this we are talking about, research that takes time, versus what we call in the real time, which is data that is collected at real time and reported on real time. I think it's more of the application and broaden the need. And also target audience, because we look at our low economic group, targeting them through the return would be a bit of a challenge because of the literacy around the literacy levels as well as the technological challenge. So one of the key benefits, I would say, for traditional research, and this is why it has remained quite a significant contribution to our research methodologies compared to other markets. It's because of the big segments of lower socioeconomic groups that we have in our countries. So if we were to target the low economic, then traditional become more relevant and more applicable. Also, when you're looking at lengthy questionnaires or instruments, especially when you're looking at social impact studies, which require probably a lot more depth, then traditional approach become more applicable and more relevant. Also, when you're looking at special groups, if you're talking to kids or special, disadvantaged groups, then the traditional approach become more relevant. So I would not say that either of the methodology is wrong. It's more how what is the question, what is the target audience, what is the business question, and what are we trying to achieve. And what we've seen over time is that as the literacy level increases, as we get more people being more technologically, I would say, literate, then we'll see the real time picking up, because that's the biggest challenge. How people are able to actually use technology to self answer the questions rather than the normal traditional way of people being asked questions. Looking at the real time, which is what it's the I would say the third generation of evolvement of the research methodologies. The key benefit is speed. We're talking about getting to know what's going on at real time. So what people are drinking, what people are feeling up after they, for example, they go to the bank, they're able to give real-time experience. So speed is the key, I would say, is the key benefit. Also cost, because then, you don't have to go knocking doors to 1,000 houses because it relies much on the technology. As well as what we call the longitudinal read. So you're not reading at one point in time. You're able to read behavior or perception over a longer time. Just to make a point of that, if you're going to interview somebody, you ask them how they're feeling at a particular time. But if you're employing a real-time measure, then you're able to read over a long time of how they've been feeling in the morning, lunchtime, and also in the evening, rather than just when you had the chance to talk to them. And also you're able to to have a bigger sample because it's cheap. You're able to have a broader spread because of the nature of the design. So for me, those are I would say the broad examples of what or benefits of when you look at the traditional versus the real time.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Chris. If I heard you correctly, it's more around how to reach consumers, also trying to understand what the business issues are, and also trying to look at special groups like kids and also lower social economic groups that do not have access to technology. So I then therefore hand over to Francis to give us some insights about real-time research from a One Pulse perspective.
Okay, thank you, Josiah, and thank you, Chris. Welcome, everybody. Happy to be here. I would like to thank Chris for crossing the border and coming over to expound on some of the advantages of real-time research. But what I would like to do is I would like to put this discussion into perspective. So I would like to show a very short clip. It takes less than 2 minutes. Just take a look at it, because around it, then you shall see the dimensions of how our discussions will proceed this afternoon. So please let me know if you can see my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Here we go. Good. That's it. So let me just add on to what you have seen, and I hope that clip has given you some dimensions of what we are talking about when we talk about agility and real-time research. So by way of background, One Pulse is a global company placed in Europe and the US. And what we do is we provide a disruptive SaaS-based marketing research tool. So what this does is that, as you have seen from the clip, it delivers instant results, real-time solutions for clients from real people to enable those clients to be able to take consumer-based, data-based decisions. So in terms of market research, we have incorporated technology or research into the mobile edge. So by the virtue of the fact that it is on mobile, we offer bite-sized mobile service. So instantly people are able to get notifications and they're able to respond. And at the back office, you are able to see those results coming in live from a dashboard. So this offers businesses opportunities to integrate consumer data or to integrate consumer insights into the marketing decisions within a very short time basis. So in Kenya, because I know this question is going to come, we have built a community of over 10,000 Kenyans who have downloaded this app. Of course, a majority of these people are based here in Nairobi. Others are spread out across the key counties, across the country. Now, these people are highly engaged 24/7. What this means is that we give them engaging content on a day-to-day basis, meaning that they are very vibrant, and we engage them on anything from the weather to politics, to technology, to culture, to name it, BBI, which is the hottest subject at the moment. So we engage them on a daily basis. And just to give you some perspective, in Kenya alone, we are able to collect over 40,000 responses every month, basing all these subjects that I've just talked about. So around the world, we are used by by the Fortune 500 companies, and of course, some of the biggest ad agencies. But now, that's just to give you a very quick background. In terms of the key advantages, of course, the first one is time. We are able to turn around results within a very short time. In that clip I just showed you, you can tell that within a short time, we say the time it takes to have a cup of coffee, you are able to get results from 1,000 people, maybe less, maybe more, depending on what kind of audience you are looking to target. So what happens is that our technology therefore shrinks both time and space. And I think Chris alluded to that when he spoke earlier. You can reach somebody in Kisumu, in Mombasa, in Kakamega, in Nyeri, in Meru, without being there. And all you do is that you just go to the platform and then you target the geolocations you want to target your audience from, and then you'll be able to integrate them in the consumer responses, which I said earlier will be coming on the dashboard. There is a feature that we have called competitor spying. And competitor spying, all it means is that if you are brand A wanting to know about brand B, you are able to ask those questions to your consumers. Again, remember, you select yourself because we have a dashboard that gives over 60 parameters which clients can use. So you can do competitor spying on this particular platform and get to find out exactly why consumers prefer A as opposed to B. Then we have a very special feature called retargeting. What this means is you're able to lift the veil. You can find out the why behind the what. If I tell you, for example, I prefer beer and not whiskey, you can retarget me again and find out why did I say beer. And you can still come back and find out more questions. Those who are here earlier for the morning presentations, Marion talked about how to generate insights and how to dig deeper. She actually said that brands need to ask themselves questions 5 times. Why? You peel the top layer and come down to the key insight. This platform can deliver that within a very short time. Without taking so much time, I just want to mention one last one about costs. And I think Chris has talked about this. What technology has done is that it has shrunk the amount of money or spend brands should be spending on consumer insights. Just look at how taxi business was in this country before Uber and Little Cab came up. A distance of Westlands to Nairobi could easily have costed 1,000 shillings. Today, we are probably paying 30% of that. The same thing happens on OnePulse, on REALTIME, this platform. So today with 10,000 shillings, with 20,000 shillings, with 50,000 shillings, whatever your budgets are, you are able to conduct research and you are able to get or integrate consumer data. There are many others, but I'd like to hand over to you, Josiah, at this point, so that we can progress the discussion.
Okay, fantastic conversation. So now I'd like to bring to the fore someone who's got in between the two. I'd like to introduce Nkatha Mtungi. She's a marketing services manager at KCB. And my question to you, Nkatha, is how have you as a client, which is KCB, and end user research, embraced either or both technologies? Over to you, Nkatha.
Thank you, Josiah. Thank you, Francis and Chris. Yes, as you said, I've pretty much been caught in between. But I think for us, research is really not only a marketing function, but serves, to support the entire strategy for the bank. And both strategies asking you about your experience. When you go buy a cup of coffee at Java, they will ask you whether you enjoyed your experience. And those become very important in monitoring your net promoter score. Will this customer promote you or recommend you to someone else? Or how difficult is it for them to access your service and so forth? Or even when you're trying to determine whether your TV show is doing well, when we ran Lions Den. So are we able to determine whether people have actually responded to the particular pitches that were on air that particular day? Then real-time research works. So for me, it's pretty much a blend of both, trying to look at the strategy for the business, what data do we require? You know, Chris said it, when you're talking to certain segments, if you're talking to your lower income where maybe data or internet is a problem, then you will need to have face-to-face interactions and ask people questions. So it depends on a lot of things, what your objectives are, and a blend of both. I don't see us being in a situation where you only work with one particular strategy, but a blend of both so that then you can meet your business needs. Back to you, Josiah.
Yeah, I just wanted to engage you a bit further. So have you had an instance where you've had this blend of real time and then maybe a longitudinal research like a tracker where you're having your NPS data reading opposite from possibly what OnePulse is telling you, and how have you resolved that conflict where you're getting different viewpoints from two different sources?
Well, I don't think we've gotten to that point, but because I remember when we were tracking Lions, then there was the real-time data that we're getting after each show, and then there was the overall analysis of what has happened and how do people feel after watching the entire season, and how do they feel about the brand. There were a lot of areas that were correlating. But for me, I think the difference is coming in if you need to make any tactical, immediate changes, then your short-term comes, to take place and becomes more important at that particular time. If you're looking at strategy and things to do with brand equity and how to support those particular decisions, then your traditional comes into play. But I haven't gotten into a situation where we actually have. If we do, I think it's an issue of probing. I think one of the things that Francis was talking about is going back and asking and trying to look at why are you having different different elements of feedback. Could it be you're talking to different types of audiences? So you could have in your online or your digital one, you're talking to a more affluent audience, a more youthful audience, and their perception of the brand is different from what the traditional would collect. So I guess it would be an issue of going back to probe a bit further and just to understand what are these unique things about the people who are responding and why are they responding in this manner.
Awesome. All right. So we then move forward. I think the next question is coming to you, Francis, without necessarily putting too much detail because you've told us a bit about it. But can you, in your opinion, tell us what has been the uptake of real-time research in Kenya by just sharing an example or two?
To speak the truth, COVID has actually accelerated the relevance of this service in this market. And you've asked for an example, so I'll give an example from a bank, and I'll also give an example from a telco. One of the recently rebranded banks needed to find out how they are perceived in this market. Have people noticed, number one, that they have rebranded? How do they connect with the new rebrand? And such kind of information. So what they did is that they came and we agreed on the audience. They consider themselves a youthful bank, so they were targeting the 18 to 35-year-olds in the key urban centers in this country. So the results were very surprising because they thought that the ads they were running on TVC and the billboards were significant in driving traction as far as the awareness is concerned. The results were very, 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 very different. That's one. And then I mentioned a telco. The telco was torn between the value, the key utility, again, the 18 to 25 derive from consuming their services. And the board of that particular company was torn between data and voice. And so again, they came and the ice was broken there and then. We can go on and on from other examples in retail, in electronics, but you asked for two, and I hope those two suffice.
Awesome. Over to you, Chris. Now that COVID has been a blessing to Francis and OnePulse, has that been the same case for Ipsos, or have you had to also adapt and change a few things internally?
We also have real-time, solutions as well. So we've seen, as COVID came, I would say, as the whole industry, not just us, I was forced to look into methodologies on how to collect data without what we call low contact methodologies. Of course, the real-time is one of them. So I would say that, we've seen a significant shift into the new methodologies of what you call the real time, using different technologies and different platforms. But what I would say is that, when the COVID happened initially, we were forced, I would say that, even the clients were, forced to start considering that a lot. But then when the things started to ease off, we've seen a little bit of people going back to the old ways. But what can I say that I don't see us getting to the to the levels of relying on traditional methods in the near future. So we are looking at a gradual shift, and this will be driven by both the demand, so the client asking for it, and also I think there's also the element of our researchers themselves. Because most of the researchers, to be honest, they've been brought up in the old ways and the old traditional way, and it does take it's going to take a mind shift to move people from defaulting to pushing the traditional way to the new ways. So I think that for me it's going to be a critical change where we get enough critical mass of researchers who are by default, when they see a brief, they think what is the best way to do it, rather than defaulting into face-to-face or as the audio is doing it. But we've seen quite a shift in the recent past, and I do think that will continue.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Chris. So from what I can hear between yourself and Francis is somebody is very curious to view what's going on, is that the world of research is evolving. Budgets are also going to come into play. Speed is going to become a factor. So what I wanted to ask is, it's a bit of a technical question, and I think Francis alluded to it a bit earlier. So what in your view, and this is a question to both of you, is an adequate sample size to make a meaningful read on data? I think we'll start with Chris and then we'll go to Francis. Chris?
I think it's really, I don't think there's what we call the minimum sample of 30. But I think the sample size depends on the design and what is a business question. If you're doing a product test, 100 would be enough. If you're doing a national representative study to understand the perceptions around a particular issue, you need 1,000. So I don't think there is one sample size that says that is enough. But there are ways to calculate, the error rates and the statistical stable sample. There are also other considerations to be, when you're looking at the sample size. For example, Are you looking at a total sample? Are you looking at what kind of analysis are you looking at? For example, are you looking at national view? Are you looking at county view? Are you looking at I don't know what is rather than the sub counties. So depending on the depth of the analysis, then that has implications on the sample size. So the sample size is really dependent on the design you're looking at and the question you want to answer. But as I said, there are ways to calculate the error rate, and that's what should be the guiding, principle. So if you're looking at a granular read, then you need to have enough sample on the lowest, what we call the cell, to be able to, to calculate, a stable number, with the 30 being the minimum sample size that you can have for per cell. So it's really dependent on the design and the depth of the analysis you're looking at. But we can't say that 100 is good. It's only good as per what you're trying to design.
Awesome. Francis, do you have a different school of thought?
I would agree with Chris 100%. We've had clients who come to us with the same question, and we've gone with, again, the depth and is it a national survey or is it a more granular, more highly segmented survey? So I would agree with Chris, 1,000. Sometimes you go as low as 750. Again, it depends with the parameters that this research is looking into. Just looking at what has been happening, if you look at the kind of political surveys that we are fed with every couple of months, those surveys range between 800, maybe 700 to about 1,200. So again, it alludes to the fact that 1,000 is a good number to go with. However, when we come now again to more specialized or highly segmented surveys, then any number could go between 100 to 300-400. Yes. Okay.
All right. Fantastic. I think we've heard a lot from the men, so we'd like to hear what the lady has to say to all this. So back to you, Nkatha. So we know the CMOs at KCB, at all the other, iconic Kenyan brands are very pressed to do more for less. I always think about what Amazon says, whenever they have a meeting, there's always a seat that represents the customer, and they talk about customer ecstasy. So in your view, has your research budget, so I'll ask you two questions at one go. So has your research budget shrunk or grown? And secondly, from a client point of view, how do you then split between, without necessarily getting into too many details, but what would be your split between allocating, for instance, your budgets to traditional and against real-time research based on your dynamic business issues? Over to you, Nkatha.
Thanks, Josiah. I think whether research budgets have grown or shrunk, I would want to say that they've been refocused, pretty much because there are certain elements in strategy and customer experience that businesses are looking at right now. So for example, in the past, there wasn't a lot of focus on looking at net promoter scores and looking at monitoring customer experiences real time. And the technology was possibly not there then, but now because it is, and it's very important for us to make sure that we understand what our customers are going through, then you find that there's new desire to put in money behind that. So it's refocusing budgets to look at some of those areas. And if we look at the instance of, I think Chris has mentioned, the impact of COVID and the fact that you're not able to carry out your research in your traditional ways, we've also seen an uptake in our mobile and digital platforms. You have less traffic in branches. So of course, then you will need to allocate more money to make sure that all your platforms and all your online platforms and mobile touch points are monitored continuously. So what was, your experience when you used internet banking or mobile banking, or called the contact center? So it's really a refocus of research budget, so that then it answers to the business objectives at that particular time. To the second question, the split between, I guess I'll just go back to what I was saying before. It's pretty much dependent on strategy for us, but we're always looking at opportunities and ways to do research better. If, I think Francis had said that it is actually cheaper to run a digital survey. So if then I am able to increase my sample size, which is the limitation with your traditional, and do it at a much better cost, then of course I will want to push budget more to that. But then the question is, shall I be able to meet all my research requirements through the real-time research? So I guess it's just a balance. We are operating on long-term strategies, and it's trying to look at, this is what the business wants. Do I need to understand this particular segment a bit more? What do I need to do that? Will a real-time survey enable me to do that? Or do I need to have a more in-depth survey and lean towards the traditional one? How do I do that? So it's pretty much a balance and based on strategy.
Fantastic. I think, Nkatha, you'd make a very good politician, because you've not really answered my first question. So I want to take you back to ask you the question in a roundabout way. So for the first time, we have seen transactions, either through agency banking, online transactions, being much higher than what is going through your brick and mortar business. So you as a client, of course, you've spoken to elements around balance and long-term strategy. So how has that impacted you as a business, where do you have to rethink about closing branches? What's your point of view with this shifting dynamic brought about by COVID?
So the shift in dynamic brought about by COVID, of course, tells us that we need to put a lot more focus on channels. And I think the bank has been talking about that, just in terms of driving transactions out of the bank. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're closing your branches. That means that because your transactions are out of the branch, then you can then use your branches to do a lot more of customer service. So they move from being transactional units to customer service units and support units. And that's what I think we've seen across the world. When we've seen a lot of banks and retail stores, insurance, financial institutions, reworking and changing how their branches are. And it's really to bring the customer service and support element forward. So moving from a transactional based unit to a customer facing unit. So that is what is happening globally. That is what I probably see happen. And it's not specific to KCB, it'll probably be across financial institutions. So how do you move, because then you're building all these platforms. We have UMA, we have agency banking, mobile banking, internet banking, and just looking at ways to make the experience of the customer a lot better and making accessing of products a lot easier. So then your branch becomes your customer facing unit, just to address customer support issues. But something that Chris had also said, our market is very different. You do have people who actually want to see branches. There are people, I know, you remember our parents, they would have to go to the branch to actually get service. So we still have a lot of users who would require to go to the branch for transactions. So it's not something that can say that all branches, because people are moving online, then we'll start seeing branches close. I think there's still a market for that.
Awesome. So one last one, so that we are fair with you. I think we've given the gentleman enough time. I'd really love to understand how much research went into your fabulous KCB Weka Weka campaign.
Oh, the KCB M-Pesa. Oh, there was quite a lot of research that went there. I think when we were trying to understand the particular audience, being a new space that we had gotten into in partnership with Safaricom on KCB M-Pesa. So there was a lot of research in understanding who are the people who'd actually save money, because Weka Weka was actually behind saving. And we got to understand that women actually save a bit more and save, we always say save small. So they would save, put in a little and a little every other time. And we also tried to understand the habits. So if then someone is borrowing money, because then the saving was linked to the borrowing. You could borrow for as long as you've saved such an amount of money, then your credit limit would go up for you to borrow more. So then we're able to understand these are the type of people, this is what they do. If you're talking about the women who go to Gekomba, you'd understand this is a particular time they would actually borrow money to go and buy stock and sell the stock during the day and actually pay back the money. So then research actually helped us understand the customer behavior and also help us to understand who exactly do we need to target with a product. So it was immensely important at that particular point.
Okay, so the questions are coming in hard and fast. We have a question first from SW. So she says, today we learned earlier that sometimes customers will not say the truth because they want to please you. So Chris and Francis, how do you then handle this? Gentlemen.
Yeah, if I may try to respond to that. That's to show that that's an issue that we face every day. Kenyans are not just Kenyans. Most of the people will always want to be positive. So some of the way we deal with that is to try, when we structure the questions, to keep them neutral, so to avoid them being, in a way that will make them want to give you an answer that is pleasing. Also, avoid reading questions. So you're not forcing them to give you an answer that you want to hear. And also, making the answers, ensuring that they know that the answers they give are not going to be tied to them. So anonymous answers. And also, the other ways of, especially as technology improves, we've seen what we call the neuroscience coming into play, where we're able to get to know what your answer is without asking you. So we use what we call like the eye tracker. We're able to know, what you're looking at in an ad, what you're thinking, what are the emotions that that is going through you without asking. And those are some of the best way of actually completely removing the bias that comes with the interviewer assisted one, where they they'll give you an answer I want to hear. So we've seen that technology becoming quite useful in completely removing the biasness, and we apply it quite frequently in our studies, and we're able to to remove that bias.
Fantastic, Francis.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. Now, our platform is applied uniformly across the world. So from the US, Europe, into Africa. And what you know about those markets is that they are heavily compliant on GDPR issues. So user identity is a high priority. And therefore, our audience remains anonymous. What does that do? It gives them the freedom to give honest, personal opinions. So when we get back the feedback, we will not be able to victimize, or we will not be able to feel shy because this is coming from brand X and your friend is the manager or is the MD, you give anonymously, and that is how it reflects in the back office.
Fantastic. So Dennis Ndavi, a very good friend of mine, says research is perceived as expensive. How do we mitigate this question? And then what is a starting point in terms of Kenya shillings or dollars? And thank you, Enoch, as well for your response, which I will read. But I'd like to hear what is Francis's view. I presume Enoch was responding on behalf of Chris. Francis, now that you've told us for 20,000 or is it 50,000, we can get research done. How do you respond to Dennis's question?
I'd like to say hi to Dennis. He's a good friend of mine. Now, the issue of research is, let me put it this way. Today, under what it costs you to buy coffee at Java, you can access one respondent. Data or consumer data has become that much cheap, that much affordable. So if you are looking at, say, accessing 20 people or 100 people, and Chris has alluded, depending on the depth of the survey that you are conducting, that then determines the audience size. You would be able to allocate 20,000 into your marketing budget, or in this case, into your research budget. And like I said, with less than what it costs to buy a cup of coffee at Java to access one person. It is actually.
Okay. Enoch, I would really like you to verbalize what you've written so succinctly to Dennis. So do you mind responding to Dennis, Enoch?
Hi, everyone, and hi, Dennis. I think the perception around research being expensive has been there across the years. But now, when we look at it differently and look at, for example, the amount of budget that you would put in to learn and guide your decision before you actually take it, you realize that it becomes diminished as a percentage of what you want to really spend, or the risk, I would say. We take examples of, for example, when you look at, you want to invest, for example, in a new market, and you only need, for example, to spend about just a random number of, say, 5 million, and your investment is going into billions of shillings. So when you take that research budget in relation to your investment, then you will see and start appreciating that, and probably less use of the word expensive to more of value. And I like what Francis has mentioned around data being very, very available. And I think this we have been seeing across the years. If you look at before 2010 and then between 2010 and around 2016, and the era that we are in now, where it's about fast tech and data being very, very available and potentially cheaper, it's more about the value that, that the research actually brings. And that's where, if you look at it differently, Dennis, you will see that the appreciation of that value then changes from the dollar sign to more of the value that that is bringing to the business decisions that you want to take. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So thanks so much, Enoch, and great to see you again. So there's something Chris alluded to earlier, and I don't know whether you've had time, but if you can Google, there's on YouTube, there's something called the behavior panel. And I think they were running an analysis, and to your point around neuroscience. So there's this interview that Prince Andrew did with the BBC. And I think after that, things just went haywire for him. But what these guys could do is they could actually tell how your foot is moving, how fast your eye blinks. And I think that's the next phase in terms of when clients are trying to look at more in-depth information in terms of more granular detail to understand an issue. It's more like peeling of an onion. So you go from one layer to the next. So I think in closing, because we are, I think 10 minutes to time, and I actually wanted to keep everybody's time, is I will let the two gentlemen or should I let the lady go first? Let's start with the lady. Yeah, so ladies first. So back to Nkatha. I think you've already told us where your budget splits comes with respect to whether it's real time or traditional, which then means that you've answered the question I'd slotted for you. But just in closing, from a crystal ball, what do you see from a client point of view with respect to research? How do you see the future of research within your business?
Well, I think one is looking at more cost-effective ways of reaching out to all audiences. So I guess when it comes to innovation and more so to the side of the research agencies, it's trying to figure out how can we meet all the research needs, even your own in-depth type of research, and how can that data be collected in a smarter way. So I think there's a lot of innovation or work that needs to be done in that respect. I think Chris also alluded to that when he said he had to start rethinking about how to tackle research, especially in this era for COVID. I think the future also has a lot to do with social monitoring. We have seen, I have interacted with a few companies that are doing online monitoring and social monitoring, so that then you can understand insights of how people are behaving online and actually start retargeting advertisements and communication to them. So I haven't really come across an agency locally that's able to do that. I always say that our local style is very different, and having someone who understands how, we know of Kenyans on Twitter and how people engage and interact. So getting people who understand those audiences, because they are growing. We saw YouTube numbers and Facebook numbers growing exponentially once COVID began. So how do we start monitoring those audiences and have a proper strategy around monitoring them? I think that's where there is a bit of a gap with our local partners. So for me, that's the future. How do we make sure that we are prepared for it, and we have local partners who understand the local language, who are able to support in monitoring and understanding customer insights in that space?
Fantastic. So we're coming to a close. I would sincerely like to appreciate all the participants, all your 50 plus who've stayed on with us. We want to encourage you to come back tomorrow. There are more fascinating stories and content. Also, like our pages, tell others what you've learned. Come back tomorrow for more. So C comes before F. So we will start with Chris. Because we both have G's as a name. So there's no way, and I didn't invent the alphabet. So Chris, this is a parting shot. So tell us, why then should we continue, or why should clients continue preferring using traditional and or blended methods of research? As you've said, now you also have some form of real time. Maybe you can speak a bit more to that in terms of how you've adapted and thrived within this COVID period.
Okay, thanks, Kimanzi. I'd actually want to also, give a bit of comment around what I see, research, where we're headed. And to be honest, actually, I think that is going to become free. I don't think clients will be paying for people to collect data. What the clients will be paying for is how to analyze and integrate the data sources that are coming from different sources. So as a research company, we did have to, re-engineer ourselves and reposition ourselves differently from a data collection agencies to more of providing insight on the data that is available. If you look at today, actually, there's a lot of data that is actually, out there, but it's not connected together. If you look at even big companies, they have a lot of data coming from sales, from what the consumers are saying online, offline. The question is, how do you bring all this together, and how does it actually help, to drive the business strategy? And I think that's a big question. As a researchers, I think we tended to really focus on data collection, where the clients actually are paying is what the insights are. And we've seen that actually the data collection becoming cheaper and cheaper. And I do see probably in 5 years, data will be free. There'll be so much data that nobody will be paying us to collect. So I think that is the thing that we recognize. So, how do we respond to that? In terms of, our offer for the online or real time, we do have platforms that we developed that help us to, to do the same as Francis have talked about, where we're able to capture consumer, whether it's behavior or perceptions on real time, and we're able to, to have clients able to tactically address the issues that are coming up on real time. For example, it could be a client that is having distribution issues. We don't have to wait until end of the month to tell them they had out of stock in Kisumu. We're able to tell them that they have out of stock now, and they need to go and be able to, to address that. So we do have those different platforms, and we can talk about it further for anybody who will be interested in them. So for me, I see the research industry evolving, and even the researchers themselves are evolving. We're getting newer, younger people in the industry that they bring their technology native, so they're able to adapt and to to deploy the tech more easily than probably some of us who are more probably older and still probably hang-ups with our old ways. So I do expect that that also will have a huge impact on how the industry evolves. But also the clients are evolving in terms of what they need and their expectations from agencies, especially because we have clients that have also experienced other more advanced deliverables from other markets, and that also helps to to help the whole industry become better. So we're going to become better and more valuable to our clients, given all those things that are happening and changing. And also COVID has helped made everybody look into how much it costs to do things, how they're doing them, how technology is going to be employed. And I don't think there's going back. Even when the COVID is, become normal flu, I think the impact of what it has been able to do for us is going to be long lasting.
Fantastic. Okay, Francis, last but not least, and then I'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much, Josiah. Let's start with what is going on around. Consumers today are highly socially connected. And a lot of this connection is through the mobile phone. Today, Kenya leads the continent in terms of smartphone penetration and internet usage. What does that say? It tells us that if you want to reach consumers, they are spending more and more time on social media. So they are online. So that is the first place to engage those people. And we have seen, looking at this market, the new entrants into that scene, whether you are looking at Okash, or you are looking at Sendi, or you are looking at Glovo, or you are looking at all these new companies, Sky Garden, Jumia. All of them are platform-based, they are internet-driven, and it tells you 100% of that business, most of that business rather, is actually conducted over the mobile phone. So the mobile phone is becoming very integral. It's a personal device, so how you use it is personal to you. And that also now builds into the anonymity that our platform provides. So the future looks bright in terms of that particular change. So culture is slowly evolving, and we are going to see quite a lot of integration of other mobile applications into this, because it is now the new lifestyle. In closing, we realize in our different workplaces, every day we make hundreds of decisions, tens of decisions, and each of those decisions can be backed by data. Each of those decisions can be backed by consumer insights, and the technology is there to provide deep insights for these businesses. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. I'd like just to share one thing that, so if I could be enabled by the co-host, just in closing and to Nkatha's point, can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear me.
Yeah, so can you enable me to share my screen? Just 1 minute. Where did you? So let me know if you can see my screen. Okay. Right. So can you see my screen?
Yes, Josiah, you can see it. You can see us.
Okay, so
yes, I
want to be as real time as possible to Nkatha's request. So I think that the reality of life now is that there's so much information, especially across different platforms, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's LinkedIn. And what we did is we were able to just look at an analysis of what we call tier 2 banks as ones and zeros. So you can look at your followers. You can look at how many followers each of those banks has. Then you can look at a thematic summary. This is primarily information monitored, very rudimentary from Facebook, but it just shows you by looking at some of the creative messaging where a certain client is focusing on. So for example, Stanbic would be looking at business women. They have a WhatsApp chatbot. How much are their loans, and so on. And so I'll stop sharing. And I think that there's a bigger issue, and I want to close on time, that we haven't even explored or touched, which is AI, predictive analytics, and how you then blend in all this information to help clients such as KCB and all the clients who are on the call or agencies representing such clients to enable better decision making. So on behalf of our hosts, APA, ISA, our sponsors, which include EABL, and to my amazing panelists. So let me put my video on. To Chris. Oh yeah, I have someone who's been, come and peep. Say hi. Okay. Anyway, to Chris, to Nkatha, to Francis, to Enoch, to Susan for making this a possibility, to Esther, you've been super amazing, and to all our panelists and attendees, asante sana, stay well, stay safe, stay kind, kwaherini. Thank you so much.